I'm Julia Davis, a film major who stumbled into the business world with no experience in 2006. I was able to fail enough to learn how to run a 7-figure business and have provided consulting services to over 200 individually owned companies. Through this podcast, I hope to provide some perspective on the growth and grit it takes to accomplish big goals and share some hard lessons I've had to learn along the way. Today we're here with Sean Spurrier, who is the director of Buckner Shoes for Orphan Souls, which is a humanitarian program that nonprofit-based, 145-year-old faith-based organization.
Yeah, so Buckner is 145 years old. The Buckner Shoes for Orphan Souls project is 25 years old.
So what's the difference between the two?
Buckner International is a child and family services organization. We're one of the oldest faith-based charities of our kind in the United States.
Okay.
One of the oldest charities in the state of Texas. Buckner International serves children and families and seniors in a variety of ways. We work in foster care and adoption in the state of Texas.
Sure.
We work in family preservation and family strengthening. So trying to help families get to a point where they won't break up, where their children won't end up in the system. And there's a variety of amazing programs that are tied to that. We also provide services to senior citizens in the state of Texas as well. One of the largest nonprofit providers of senior care in the state of Texas. But one of the ways that we've gotten to serve over the last 25 years in a pretty meaningful way throughout the world is through Shoes for Orphan Souls. So.
And that's what's 25 years old.
Yeah, so that's 25 years old. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And so how long have you worked with them?
I've been with Buckner for about 10 and a half years.
Okay, so about half the time almost.
Yeah.
Of doing this. Okay,
yeah.
And how did you get involved in the nonprofit world in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I took a long path to entering my career. There was a period of time where I was a touring musician, which slowed my education down. And then after I got married, I was finishing my degree. I was working in sales and marketing. And I did an internship with Buckner International. I was studying communications and really had a big focus on writing and storytelling, and had the opportunity to intern with Buckner and do that for a little while, and really just kind of fell in love with the programs. It was an amazing way to be exposed to the breadth of the work that we were doing by spending a few weeks telling the story. And after that, I was hooked. I knew I wanted to really just dedicate the next seasons of my career to this work. So
then you just gave up the dreams of being the rock star or
in the band. I had already
moved into that. What a career change, right?
It was a big shift. I had already moved on from that, and I was working again in sales and marketing, and and then made that shift. I really just wanted to dedicate my skills to making an impact, and I was just really drawn to the specific work that we were doing at Buckner. So.
Let's go back. Let's rewind for just a second to talk about your career as a musician.
Let's do it.
So this is like a lot of people work really hard for a long time. So people who are in business or in general watching this, what was the time commitment that you had to put in when you were in the music industry? Was it obviously it was full time because you had a hard time maybe doing school and that, right?
Yeah, it was very close to it. So, most musicians, the ones you hear on the radio, that's one thing. The most of us are road weary, and we're spending a ton of time writing, recording. I lived with my bandmates. We were, having to save money when we got home. Most of us worked similar jobs, sometimes with each other.
Yeah.
And then we would be on the road for weeks or months at a time. And so it is a significant amount of time that goes into it. And we all met our wives right around the same time, and we kind of just had this moment of going, okay, there are other things out there that we're drawn to, and the amount of time and really money that's required to do this is not feasible at the moment.
Give us an estimate of what amount of money it takes to do that, and how much return you get on that investment. So what's the...
I would suggest that it's probably not a great return. And especially so we were doing this in 2005 to 2008, which was an era in which the music industry was actually kind of collapsing in 2008. Streaming, all this stuff was kind of coming to fruition at the time. And so, I mean, back then, studio time recording a 3 or 4 song album might be a few $1,000. studio equipment and access to good production is a lot cheaper these days than it was back then. And so, gosh, I would be leading you astray to tell you that we recouped much of that, because we were really just kind of,
you were kind of like at a net zero.
Yeah, we were in that phase where we just really wanted to kind of put all of our chips on the table and just really see if we could do it. And for us, really the ROI ends up being we got to make really good music with our best friends. We got to see the country time and time again with our very best friends. And if we came home having paid our most basic of bills and have a few bucks in our pocket, then that was a really big win. That didn't actually happen very often either, though. So yeah, the ROI was pretty upside down. It was an upside down initiative for us, but I wouldn't take it back, though. And in fact, there's so much of what I learned through that kind of cultivation of a small business, which was that band, that I still use every single day in my career right now. So
that's huge.
Yeah.
Did your parents object, or like did anyone's parents, were they like, what are you guys doing? Like,
yeah.
Or were they just like
absolutely.
supportive? Were they like, yeah, whatever, go have fun? And
No, I think they all thought we were a little bit crazy. But I remember I had a conversation with my dad. It's helpful to be the younger of two sons, both of which are musicians, because I think I got a little easier of a go at it. But I was in my early 20s at the time and had a couple conversations that were just kind of, if you're going to try this, now is the time to do it. It was a big risk. I was in a retail job. I had gotten promoted to a department manager at a music store, and things were, looking pretty good for me in sales. And some buddies of mine who were really good friends, but were also a band that I was a fan of, asked me to join them, and I had a couple weeks notice, and I was going to have to leave that job for, 12 or 13 weeks. And so it was pretty much setting aside the managerial kind of retail position that I was in to take a risk and try this thing. And it's
awesome.
There's so much of who I am today, whether professionally or personally, it's because of that experience. And those guys are still my best friends. So yeah,
I think that's a really good point, because sometimes I think you have to take a risk, and the experience, you don't realize that it's going to help you in some other arena, like whether that ends up being like you guys make it big and end up being on the radio and making millions of dollars, or you don't. It's the experience, the life experience that you have, how to overcome challenges, how to handle rejection, how to be in front of crowds that are huge or tiny, or you get paid or you don't get paid. Like, how do you handle all those things? It probably helps you long term navigate different business aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where I guess not all ROI is going to be financial.
It's true,
but we were, kids who were in our early 20s who were learning how to set up, business bank accounts and manage our money and set up a DBA. And then so much of that work is relationship management. Everything is relationship based. And so whether that's, publications or trying to get on the radio, or venue owners and promoters or other artists, or people that you're just trying to sell your albums and your t-shirts to at your merch table at the end of the night, it's all relational. And so, we were young kids just trying to get that figured out. And I think when you're really kind of roughing it in that way, you come up with some creative ways to survive. And but also I think that the level of relationship development that I learned as a musician was. It was something that went beyond kind of what you experience in a typical sales environment. I think you really learned to truly value the people that were kind of helping to sustain you. And so I think the depth of relationship that I carry over into the roles that I'm in now, a lot of that started there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think something that people don't realize, it's a unique career path that you had with that, but it led you to this, which is great, right? Because now you love it, and you've been doing this for 10 years. And okay, so back to that was interesting. Yeah, that was great.
Good little segue. Yeah, little detour.
I was just like personally curious on that. Okay, so nonprofit work, I think, has this idea, or I've seen, of like, okay, these are all feel-good people. These are people that just like want to help the world and all that kind of stuff. How much of business is at play in a nonprofit?
Oh, it's, that's a significant portion of it. You do have your nonprofit professionals, a lot of individuals who will see a problem, they'll want to meet that need. But in order for a nonprofit to be sustainable and for the impact to expand, you need a variety of people with business acumen in various areas. So a nonprofit in every aspect is a business, really.
What do you think are some of the key attributes? Like if somebody is like, I've always wanted to go into the nonprofit field, what do you think is the best way in? And what do you think is the growth trajectory? Like how long would it take somebody to advance in that field?
That's a great question. I would say anybody. First off, I want to be careful to emphasize that you can make a difference wherever you are. So if you're in the for-profit sector, if you're in working for a business, there are really amazing social and redemptive aspects of that you can really lean into. But if you're drawn to the nonprofit sector, we need people with sales and marketing acumen, communication skills, storytelling skills, accounting, financial skills. We need good, strong CFOs and CEOs and leaders. And so as often as you are coming across somebody with maybe a ministry background or a social work background, we need that to be supplemented by MBAs and people with legal understanding. And so I would say to just kind of leverage those skills that you have. Those skills are valuable in the nonprofit sector. And it really depends. The trajectory for a worker in a nonprofit setting, it probably depends on the size of the nonprofit and the scope of the work. But Buckner, where I work, we're 145 years old. It's a pretty large organization, and there's a lot of intentionality about growth and development, and advancement, looking from within at what talent has been cultivated and what talent has expanded within within our parameters. And so it took me a few years to move up into the director role. But what I loved about that is that at this point I'm experienced in really every aspect of the work that we do. And I'm never asking our team to do something that I haven't done or wouldn't already do. So it would be difficult to say how long it might take to find a growth trajectory, because it depends on the size and scope of the organization, but it's definitely there. The nonprofit sector is I think it's the third largest job sector in the United States of America. It's outpacing a lot of things that would really surprise you. I think last time I read, this is a couple years ago, but I think at one point it was outpacing even manufacturing at one point. And so there's a significant amount of growth in the sector. But it's really, I think it comes down to deciding how you want to leverage your skills.
Yeah.
Do I want to leverage these skills and make a social impact? What we're doing within the nonprofit sector is casting a vision for human flourishing. So we're not selling a product necessarily. We're selling services and an idea. And if we can cast that vision well and tell the story well and invite people into it well, and then really manage the business well, then it's a pretty fulfilling place to plant to kind of set some roots in and stick it out for a while.
Yeah. So in the business world, sometimes people look at other people doing better than them as competition, and in reality, like the more resources you can use, the better you're going to end up being. So what have you found in the nonprofit world to really think about competition, and how do you guys view that?
Yeah. I might have a unique take on this. I don't know that it is at all. But I think competition in the nonprofit sector can be a little different than it is in the for-profit sector. We are, those who would be our competitors, we're all really just trying to serve more children and families. And we're not selling a product. We're trying to cast a vision for human flourishing and for serving children and families and seeing them achieve sustainability and vibrancy. And so when I'm collaborating, or when I'm communicating or working alongside competitors, or even thinking about how we exist alongside our competitors, in a lot of ways, I'm I'm thinking about it differently. I've actually got a group of guys. We connect quarterly. They would be considered competitors. We work in a very similar segment, kind of marketing segment or category of service. And we all realize that, if their organizations are thriving, it means more children and families are thriving. And if our organization is doing well, they view it the same way. More children and families are thriving and experiencing, a holistic transformation in their lives. And so,
there's a book that you read, right?
Yeah, there's actually a book called Rooting for Rivals by Peter Greer. He's the CEO of Hope International, and it was really kind of a turning point for me in the way that I view competition, and it really kind of maybe even sparked this ongoing relationship that I've got with these colleagues from other organizations. And it's really just about how, in our world, we're wanting to impact as many children and families as possible. And one of the best ways we could do that is through collaboration. And it kind of takes you out of this scarcity mindset. When I was in sales, I feel like a lot of times I had a scarcity mindset. If I wasn't getting this sale, there were less sales to be had. But I don't like operating that way. I want to operate under the understanding that if we're providing excellent care and we're telling excellent stories and we're skilled at inviting people into that story, that there isn't a shortage of people who want to be involved in that. And so if people are getting involved in those stories with people who might be our competitors, and again, competition is just kind of a weird term for me in this realm. Again, that means that they've told a story really well, and they've engaged people, and they've cultivated relationships, and ultimately more children are going to be served. And so I just see within competition in the nonprofit sector, for like-minded organizations, I actually see a lot of opportunity for collaboration, and that really helps you expand your impact.
That's a good message for for-profit businesses too, because I think the better training people have, the more people help each other, the more likely it is to have a positive reputation across the board on any client, right? Versus if everyone's fighting against each other, the chances of negatives happening skyrockets.
Absolutely.
Because then one person's mad at one person and then someone's back talking, you know what I mean? Like then there's all this gossip or chatter behind the scenes that just makes everyone look bad.
Absolutely. Well, and you know what? Some of our sectors are small. Get together, share notes, cultivate relationships. I mean, you never know when you're going to need somebody to collaborate with on a project in a future time, or you might come alongside them in a professional environment, in a new role at some point. And so it has honestly been, for me, one of the more rewarding parts of my job over the last 3 or 4 years that I've kind of gotten to cultivate some of these relationships. And many of them have resulted in donors coming our way, or
isn't it funny how that happens?
Yeah, media outlets coming our way and saying, "Hey, we heard about you from so and so. Heard you do really good work. We trust them. We'd love to collaborate with you." And so it just takes you out of the scarcity mindset. There are a lot of people who want to be involved in good work, or there are a lot of people who want to buy good products and from people that they trust. And if we're collaborating, then I think that can help us expand our impact.
Great message.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. A lot of the people that own businesses or are in small business and they want to make an impact. They think, okay, I'm in this industry, their skill is in sales or marketing or real estate or whatever it is. And they're like, what can I do as a company to help organizations? Or, is there a time of year where you guys are like, this is the time of year we need the most support? It might not be fourth quarter, right? Because maybe this is when everybody's giving.
Yeah.
It might be, Q1 or Q2. And what could businesses do to support organizations during those times?
That's a great question. And I'll kind of speak from my experience with Buckner. You're right. Most nonprofits are, Q4 is everybody's hands are out and everybody's ready to give.
Yeah.
And on my particular team, we actually end up seeing a lot of our busier season often ends up being in the summer, early fall, which is strange for a lot of nonprofits. A lot of times that's a quiet season, but with the nature of the work that we do on the Buckner Shoes team, that ends up being a large kind of event season for us, which is where a lot of our fundraising and gift in kind collection occurs. But I don't think a nonprofit organization is going um, to really dictate too closely when a business might want to connect with them. In fact, when I have businesses that reach out to me asking about seasons, I kind of offer creative control to them on that. If you're willing to work with us, let's come together and we'll resource this on your timeline. But I would, there's so much good work that can be done with small businesses and with businesses in the area. We work a significant amount on gift in kind drives. So Buckner Shoes, we both work with donors to collect physical shoes. We also host fundraisers where we're able to kind of target that giving a little bit more. And so churches, businesses, organizations throughout the country will host virtual drives or collections any time of the year. And that's just a really easy way for them to leverage the foot traffic that they've got, whether that's digital foot traffic or physical foot traffic, and really kind of leverage their market share to introduce their customers to an opportunity to serve beyond what they're doing on an everyday basis. And so, we work with businesses who have a 1-for-1 model. We've got a couple shoe companies that for every pair of boots that they will collect, they'll donate a pair to a child in need through Buckner Shoes, Orphan Souls. We have others who or we've worked with others in the past who, when you go up to the cash register, do you want to give an extra buck for a
Right.
child to provide a pair of shoes to a child in need throughout the world? And so there's just a variety of ways to do that. And I think businesses, what's neat about that opportunity is they've got so much creative control to kind of leverage that, their market, their core constituency, to tell them about what they're doing. And nonprofits like ours, we're always looking for businesses and organizations to align with in our community and to bring people in the door.
How big of an impact do monthly reoccurring gifts have? Do you guys have a monthly donor program?
Buckner does. Buckner Shoes doesn't have a huge monthly recurring gift program, but Buckner does. And one of the things that you'll see is this is where kind of, I think, and I might get myself into a little trouble here, but that's going to be kind of where your mid-level, your giving kind of exists. That's where it kind of grows from. And so I think that every nonprofit is really looking for that foundation, that base to kind of fill those needs. Not every nonprofit's going to have a huge portfolio of people where they can go
Right.
grab $100,000 check or $1 million check. So you really want to fill that pipeline with individuals who are
giving.
willing to give over a lifetime.
Yeah. What's been like the most eye-opening experience you've had working with this organization? Like, is there something that you saw or a visit that maybe you did? I know that you fly sometimes to Mexico and different places in the world and hand out the shoes and do, the actual feet on the ground type of work. Is there anything that like really impacted you that you were like, man, I wish more people knew about this?
Yeah. I feel like every time I get to be a part of one of our service opportunities or get to travel internationally and spend time with our families or the children that we serve, I feel like I always come back and I'm like, that was one of the most meaningful opportunities that I've had. So yeah, I've had the opportunity. We work in 6 countries primarily. We've gotten to serve children through this program in 86 countries, but we work throughout Latin America and in Africa. And even as recently as this past year, connecting with a family, we had a little girl who was receiving a pair of shoes. We had a partner that was with us on this trip, and he was serving this little girl. And we had a moment of kind of being taken aback by how emotional she was by receiving something as simple as a pair of shoes. And in all these countries that we work in, shoes, they really kind of represent a bunch of different things. You and I had a choice when we walked out of our houses today, on what pair of shoes we were going to wear to the studio. But it's a luxury that most of the children that we work with don't have. And so it's also this very vital little simple tool that allows them to experience health in regions where there are footborne illnesses, some of which can be catastrophic, or lowers barriers to education in developing regions where they cannot go to school without a pair of shoes. And so when a child receives that, there are moments that are genuinely emotional, and in a very different way than what you and I and the kids that we our kids might experience. And so I was in Mexico just a few months ago and experienced that. Saw a little girl who was just absolutely just so emotional, so overjoyed, in tears because somebody thought of her in that way to give her a pair of shoes. And when we got in the van to go back to our hotel, we were discussing the experience with our team who's on the ground. We've got a team of locals who are serving the families and children there through our Family Hope Centers. And they were explaining how her family had come in. They were a broken family. They were experiencing hardship. They were having trouble maintaining their businesses and their jobs. And through kind of entering those programs, they were experiencing kind of holistic transformation in their families. And what I've experienced in my role is seeing how that simple gift, engaging someone in Dallas, Fort Worth to donate a few bucks or to provide a pair of shoes can lead to a child coming into a shoe distribution, and that shoe distribution being the gateway for their family to experiencing transformation in a variety of ways. And so we got to see that in a very very real way just a few months ago. And I get that opportunity every time I travel. I feel like, it's just something that just continues to occur. And so I'm always amazed. I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm always taken aback by how something so simple can lead to such impact. And then also bringing that story back. The partner we were with in Mexico was a radio personality. And him having that moment of experiencing the impact of something so simple, but also so profound, was an opportunity to him to kind of internalize that and come back and broadcast that story. And, we want to be very dignifying in the way we tell our stories. But having those moments where you can experience the impact, and then just coming back, telling the story in a compelling way, and then just inviting people into it, is really the key to a lot of our work. Building trust, building deep relationships, telling the story, inviting people into that story, is really a lot of the work that we do. And so, yeah, it's been a real gift that I've had that experience in a variety of places throughout the world over the last 10 years. And, but yeah, just kind of seeing, to answer your question, like those paradigm shift moments, just seeing the impact of something so small and then being able to utilize that to come back and hopefully impact more children and more families. Those moments are really kind of what fuel me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think seeing is believing too, because I don't know if you guys deal with the skepticism, right? I think nonprofits come with a certain level of skepticism, like, does this money actually go to the kids? How much of it is being used for that? How much of it is being, so how do you guys combat that? Or what do you do to try to reassure people? Like, if I'm giving you $100 or 50 pairs of shoes, like, will these shoes actually get to the kids? Like, how do you guys deal with that?
Yeah. So Buckner, we're blessed that we've got a really great team of people who are kind of stewarding the reporting. So all of your work needs to be reported and reported well, and then there needs to be good storytelling with that as well. So we've got a really talented team that's doing that. So ideally, our donors kind of know what's happening with their funds that they provided, with the generosity that they've extended. In addition to that, again, I think a lot of it comes back to storytelling. We want to be as present as possible for the moments of impact, so we can continue to tell that story, whether that's through social media or through really compelling video, through magazines or earned media. We want to make sure that we're telling that story consistently, just so that people can really visualize and see the impact. And again, we've got a really talented team. I feel like I get to sit in this chair and kind of be a cheerleader for a lot of really talented people, but we've got such a talented team of writers and storytellers that have allowed us to really kind of get in front of the right audiences and communicate that message. Yeah. But that's one way of kind of showing that, your generosity is actually having an impact. So you really want to steward those gifts well. You want your fundraising and your gift team to be able to communicate to donors what's happening in a timely manner. And that's really a relational thing too. But then you also on the other end want to be telling that story in a compelling way and in a very consistent way. Which again, during the pandemic became a little bit more difficult when we weren't traveling as much. And so we were really relying on that reporting. And so we've got tremendous teams who are doing inspirational work that entire time. But yeah, so you've got to be creative about that sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So if a business wants to find you, right? Because I know a lot of the small businesses that I work with, they're always looking for something to do during the holidays. And sometimes it's hard to find a great organization, or if people just aren't familiar with the nonprofit world, this sounds like a great option for them to be able to do this. And if you guys communicate with the business owner and say, hey, this is the impact you guys are making, or these are where your shoes were delivered, or, this is who received that. Because when you were talking about that story, it's just something that we all take for granted, right? Like we have got tons of shoes.
Yeah. Again, I literally,
how many shoes Andrew and I have. It's like a wall of shoes, which I feel like guilty about now. Like, do you feel guilty buying?
There's, this is not a guilt thing. It's a useful tool to understand how blessed we are. But yeah,
useful tool to be like, these shoes change lives. Then I can buy an expensive pair of shoes, because it'll change my life. But like kids, like tennis shoes, or I'm sure you're giving tennis shoes, right? Is that like the main thing, or boots, or snow boots, or
so
things like that?
The general kind of initial gift are athletic or canvas closed-toed shoes. And a lot of the countries we work in, there are footborne illnesses that can go through gaps and holes in shoes. And so if a child has a cut on their feet, we want to make sure that they're in a fully enclosed pair of shoes. That does change based off of region. So there are some regions where, we'll get requests for boots, rain boots. There are actually some partners who request specifically sandals because of the region that they're in. But generally speaking, we're providing closed-toed athletic shoes. Additionally, and this is really great when we can kind of target their like financial giving. A lot of the regions that we work in require a black school shoe, and so
I see. Okay.
Some of our fundraise dollars will target that specific gift.
So how do they find you? So like if I'm a business owner and I'm like, okay, I want to get involved in this organization. So what would I do if I'm a small business and I have no?
Yeah. You can, so we're easily accessible. You go to buckner.org or buckner.org/shoes. And when we work with businesses, we try to provide all of the resources. We try to do as much of the legwork as we possibly can to serve that business and make their either fundraiser or shoe drive as turnkey as possible. And so they can reach out to us there, and we can provide all of the resources, digital or material, to kind of help create a successful event for them. And then again, we do want to be intentional about making that meaningful for them and tell the story well. And so,
Do you only take new shoes, or do you take
the gift? The ask is new shoes.
Yeah.
So there are a variety of reasons for that. One is customs. It's harder to get used items through customs sometimes, but we're also we have an opportunity every time we distribute a pair of shoes to convey value to the child. Oftentimes, this might be the first new item they've ever received, and we've even experienced that in Dallas-Fort Worth. Just last year, we served in a community that was a high refugee community in Dallas-Fort Worth, and the shoes that we provided were for many of those children the first new item that they had received. And so, the ask is for new shoes, athletic or canvas, or again, you can host a virtual shoe drive where you're engaging your friends and your business to raise funds to provide shoes. Or you actually can just go straight onto our website and give directly to purchase a pair of shoes. So lots of opportunity to engage, and every one of those is meaningful and could lead to significant impact in the lives of a child or a family.
I think that's really neat.
Yeah.
Can you share with us a few more stories of times where you've seen what you guys do make a huge impact?
Yeah. One of the things that we discuss on our team, we've really kind of got 4 core deliverables. The physical deliverable is a pair of shoes, but what we're trying to provide is health, education, hope, and opportunity. And so we kind of see those things happen in a variety of ways. I think to one of the very first trips that I ever joined when I started at Buckner back in 2014, we were serving in a village in the Dominican Republic, and really only spent a little bit of time kind of in passing hearing this story of a family. But it's something that's stuck with me for the entire 10 years that I've worked here. But it's a family that had twin boys, and they had to have a pair of shoes to go to school, could not enter the doors of a school without that pair of shoes. And they had one pair between the brothers. And so they had to choose which son on which day they would send based off of the ability to provide the most basic kind of components of what they needed to go into school. And so just being able to provide that pair of shoes to their family kind of opened the door for both of their kids to go to school. And in these regions, education is a vital component to their rising above poverty.
Yeah, it's their way out of that situation.
Exactly.
Right? And it's so meaningful to the parents.
Yeah. And so, again, it's simple. We have this opportunity to just kind of carry a burden for our neighbor, whether that neighbor is local or international. There are also stories of kind of, broader impact. There's a little girl named Dulce that we met in Guatemala a few years ago, and her family, similar to the story that we discussed earlier, her family was struggling financially. The father was kind of in the throes of alcoholism, wasn't able to hold down a job. The mother was about to lose her job. She was cleaning houses, and they were about to lose their house as well. The landlord of the property that they were in was wanting to either sell or kind of they were just about to lose their home. And Dulce comes in for a pair of shoes. She gets a little pink pair of shoes, and that was our opportunity to introduce their whole family to Buckner Family Hope Center programs. These are programs that are in communities, in vulnerable communities, serving families that are in vulnerable situations and helping them rise above poverty and achieve sustainability. And that pair of shoes was their gateway to learn about Buckner. And within a relatively short amount of time, they had a home again. Their mom, who didn't know how to read, had learned how to read. She wanted to read the Bible to her kids, and so she had the opportunity to do that. Their dad was back in the picture. He had rehabilitated. He was really kind of serving in he was serving in their local church, and he experienced a ton of transformation. All this happened because they needed a pair of shoes. And I'm not saying the shoes are the reason they happened, but they were that
bridge.
Yeah, they were that gateway to learning about the programs. And our teams in our countries do such an amazing job utilizing those opportunities to engage with the families, find out what their needs are. And it's different for every one of them. We have the opportunity to plug them into educational programs. We have families that come in where they may have incredible skills, but they need to learn the entrepreneurial side, and we kind of help bolster that. So a pair of shoes can often be the gateway to that happening. And just so many opportunities I've had over the last 10 years or so, just to tell a child that they're valued, they're loved, they're cared for, they're not forgotten, which is equally important,
right?
For a child to hear that we see you, and we're thinking about you, and there are a group of people who want to see you succeed and experience and know your value. So every pair of shoes is an opportunity to do that. We're a faith-based organization. It's an opportunity to, in our view, to express the love of God to a child in a really tangible way. And tons of opportunity, tons of stories that we could sit here and discuss, and I'd be glad to do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that story. I think it'll help a lot of people. So I appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully we get some great fundraising out of this.
Hey, absolutely. And if there's anything we can do, just let us know. But it's been great to chat with you about it.
Thanks so much.